Looking for a cutting-edge master's program in business analytics? In the Central European University in Vienna, we offer an impactful one-year English language program accredited in both the US and Austria. Scholarships are available if you apply by the 4th of February. In the program, you will master coding, data analysis, machine learning, and data engineering, along with business intelligence and agile project management. Beyond core expertise in these fields, you will also practice harnessing AI in coding, analytics, and design. You will complement your studies with real-world experience through use case seminars and a capstone project with an industry partner. My name is Gábor Békés. I'm an associate professor here at the Department of Economics, and I teach a series of data analysis courses. Hope to see you in September.
All right, hello everybody. You can hear me well? Yeah, excellent. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you for inviting me, Gábor. I'm going to be giving a bit of an odd talk on managing data science teams. I will say everybody's talks have been much more colorful and very exciting. I think I'm just going to have to do a little bit of dancing to keep you equally excited. But I have to start all my talks with a disclaimer. This is purely my talk. I'm not here for my employer. I'm not here in any kind of like capacity to try to recruit, to try to talk you into anything other than CEU is an amazing place. The Masters in Business Analytics is something that I think is an amazing transformative program. But everything I'm going to tell you is from my own personal experience. It is from what I have learned in my rather longish career trying to figure out how on earth do you manage a data science team, even what is one of those? So if you like it, fabulous, that's on me. If you hate it, it's also on me. You can just harass me afterwards about it. So who am I, right? So my name is Eduardo Ariño de la Rubia. You can call me Ed, you can call me Eduardo, any of those are fine. I've been a technologist for a very, very long time. I hired my first machine learning engineer in 1999. And back then I had this crazy idea that it was possible that if you applied neural networks to user behavior, you could do stuff. I was right, it turns out, but I was just off by about a decade and a half. The neural network architectures weren't there. We didn't have enough data. Doesn't matter, the company ended up being acquired, so it worked out well for me. I've led analytics organizations in a bunch of different companies, logistics, software, very large tech companies. I will say my experience is from product analytics and algorithmic analytics, right? So if you're somebody from the biotech space, if you're somebody from the nonprofit sector, if you're in any of these other areas, it's possible that my experience just doesn't map, and I'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. I don't have a PhD. My wife is the one with the doctorate. She's the one who's more qualified than I am. I have a master's really in understanding human conflict. I went back to graduate school and got a master's degree in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building, and it was by far the most useful thing that I've ever done. One of the things that I did do that I'm very, very proud of, so it's actually really nice to see that the Vienna community has this great data science organization. That's awesome. The Vienna Data Science Group, like whoever it is that is running that thing, I think it's one of y'all. Yeah, bravo, amazing. I used to co-run Data Science LA with a couple of folks. We had a very, very large community. Just an incredibly rewarding experience to bring data scientists together and to have great conversations. So again, why may we be worth listening to? What else you got to do on a Friday night? You're data scientists. I have personally been responsible for analyzing literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of analytics candidates. I mean, from the resume standpoint all the way up to like debriefs. I've built analytics teams in multiple organizations. I've been brought in to turn around a 4-person team. I've scaled that to a couple of 100-person organization across, I think at one point I had a team in 20 time zones. So that was really good for my sleep. I've been brought in to help reorganize and realign things. I've owned everything from data infrastructure, data science, data engineering, business analytics, and I've worked at many different types of companies, from very small seed stage startups, which we ended up raising VC from top tier funds, then fizzling out, but that's a different story. We've had exits, and I've even survived a decade and now 7.5 years at mega corporations. That being said, maybe you shouldn't listen to me. Every organization is different. Things that work for me may not work for you. And there has to be a cultural sensitivity aligned to this, right? I bring, and I acknowledge my bias, I bring a US work perspective. Now, even though I spent 4 years working in Zurich, the reality is I was working for a US company in Zurich, so the things that I say may just simply not work in a different environment. That's okay. And more importantly, we can't really run an A/B test on my career and see if with a different initial condition I would have ended up a flop. Who knows? Could have happened. But my strategies have worked so far. One of my favorite quotes from actually the gentleman who is the reason why I am involved with CEU is, you can probably learn a lot about how to be a millionaire by asking millionaires how they became millionaires. You can not learn anything about how to become a billionaire by asking a billionaire how they became a billionaire. That is going to be overfitting, right? So just take my advice with a grain of salt. So why am I talking about managing data science teams? My first hot take is data science isn't real. What do I mean by that? If we sample 10 data scientists out of a bag, out of the global population of data scientists, and we ask them what activities they're doing throughout the day, they're all almost certainly doing different sets of activities. At the end of the day, wherever the Red Bull guy is, we're all seeking truth, but the reality is, hey, there you are. But we're probably doing very, very different activities throughout the day. Data science teams have deeply unique organizational challenges. That's actually going to be the most of what I talk about in my talk. Very complicated cross-functional dependencies, very, very different stages of maturing organizations. Being a data scientist as a startup, at a startup as the 10th employee is just fundamentally different than if you're a data scientist at a global multinational like bank who is trying to incrementally improve risk scores or something like that. Data science management is really important, but not very flashy, is the reality. Like, data science management is a lot of chopping wood, and it can seem kind of boring, but bad managers destroy careers. Like, I've seen it in my life that you get people who are, at any stage in their career, they join a data science organization with a manager whose incentives are not aligned, and you see people actually maybe not even leave the company, but leave the field entirely for it. And this isn't just data science managers. Managers across the field, across the world can destroy careers. But gosh, when you get that good manager, and there's, I've had a lot of managers in my life, and I can count the good managers probably on one hand, and if my current manager is watching on stream, obviously you're one of them, Mike. But good managers can help people thrive. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you now. So I want to talk a little bit about understanding the role of a data science team. Then we're going to talk about key challenges in managing a data science team. Then I'm going to talk about some best practices for managing data science teams. Depending on how the time is, I've got a bonus topic prepared on using AI to manage data science teams. And then closing in Q&A. Quick show of hands, who here has actually taken a class from me before? Okay, I love all of you. All of you that have taken a class from me knows that I am pathologically an over-preparer. I probably have 60 times more slides that we can get through, but we'll see what it is that happens. All right. When I started thinking about this talk, when Gabor reached out to me and was like, hey, let's do a talk, what do you want to talk about? I said, managing data science teams. The thing that I really wanted to convey, and actually this is kind of the main thing, is that all data science organizations that I've ever experienced are somehow different. There exists this massive continuum of places in which they can fit in the maturity of an organization, that they can fit inside of the expectations of the organization. Organizationally, do they report to this kind of team, or do they report to this kind of team? All of these things. So what my talk is really talking about the different axes of the continuums that I have discovered managing data teams across time that allow you to really think about what are the trade-offs as a manager that you need to be thinking about on a continuous basis about how you are structuring your organization and what are the incentives that you're creating and aligning inside of the organization. And I really want to encourage all of you to think about these trade-offs in human timescales, right? Like, all of us that work with computers oftentimes get very, very impatient when we talk about change, because we're accustomed to being able to run a script, and suddenly things that said A now say B. We compile things, we do SQL queries. Things happen reasonably quickly. Once you shift to being a manager, you have to shift to human time. So all of these continuums, none of these are fast continuums. All of these happen on a human scale, but I really want you to think about the trade-offs. So, step one, understanding the role of a DS team. Now, I'm not going to cover the fundamental role. The fundamental role is to create business value, yada, yada, yada. Everybody understands that. But data science teams serve different organizational needs. Continuum one that I want you to think about for your organization is, are you in an exploration space or a production space? Right? So in an exploration space, are you actually working right now to find insights to drive strategic decisions? Or are you in a production space? So you already know what the principal insights are. You already know exactly what it is that needs to happen. And really now it's about embedding models and systems for automated decision making. This is one of those continuums that if you get this wrong, kind of I put this first, things go sideways. Now, a single team does not have to be wholly inside of one place in this continuum, but you as a data science manager, and I won't repeat this over and over again, but I want you just to imagine I'm saying this, have to be making these decisions in a very thoughtful manner. Are we doing exploration or are we doing production? Now, continuum 2, insight versus product. So insights, are you building dashboards, reports? Are you trying to create comprehensive understanding and ad hoc analyses, right? Or product? Is your goal to create scalable data applications that you're putting into production, again, for fraud detection or personalization? This is one of those things that also can be more like, are you more traditional BI or are you more like ML engineering and ML ops? And different organizations can have different places that they live in the spectrum at times. And continuum number 3, and how are you driving value? Are you reactive or are you proactive? Now, there's kind of like this weird thing where people think that reactive is bad. It's not necessarily bad. For example, let's say that you're at a startup, the startup's gone very, very well, you're about to actually IPO, your data science team is now reactive. Why? Because there are regulators who are constantly asking you for information. You are no longer in proactive space. It is your job to make sure that the regulatory readiness that is necessary for the IPO to happen, happens. But maybe you're in a proactive space. Maybe the business is in a different kind of steady state. And what you have to do now is you have to shape business priorities through data strategies. I say in my, in one of my classes that I teach, that I think of us sort of as the chief financial officer of the attention of an organization. And this is really what I'm talking about here, right? Is the attention being placed on reactive strategies or proactive strategies? So key takeaway for this slide, define the mission by aligning the team's goals with the organizational needs of maturity right now. What makes data science teams challenging? Continuum number 1, certainty versus ambiguity. Are you working in a space that is well-defined problems, right? Like you know that right now your most pressing thing that you need to do is you need to get a hang on what is happening with user churn, and you've got fantastic label data. Spectacular. Like there are fabulous textbooks out there that use this as an example that you can just pick up and you understand what this means. Or are you in an ambiguous space? Like we really don't know what the problem is and we need to ask open-ended questions. You might be getting questions from your product leadership or from engineering leadership like, what's going on with customer retention anyways? Understanding again, as a data science leader or as an analytics leader, are we in certainty space and therefore we have to really answer these concrete questions, or are we in ambiguity space and we need to shape the strategy in the questions? Continuum number 2, experimentation versus execution. So again, experimentation, focused on hypothesis testing, model exploration, proof of concept work. This could be something, your business is entering into an entirely new space. There's lots of different ways that you could solve a problem and you really want to do lots of easy MVPs to figure out what fits. Or execution. At this point, you have product market fit. You see the hockey stick beginning, but there are other competitors out there that are chasing your tail. And so the key here is what we have to do is we have to become the absolute most elite company at doing this thing that we know has product market fit. That's a very, very different space, and you're going to run your team and the incentives differently depending on how you do that. And specialized versus broad focus. This is a pretty straightforward thing to think through. Specialized, are you doing deep dives into specific tasks, right? So are you running a data science team that is embedded inside of the recommender engine subsystem inside of a company, and your goal is to improve the recommender score by X percentage because you know exactly what the dollar per minute spent for recommendation is? Or is it a broad focus? This also often happens in much smaller companies where the individual ICs and the data science teams own much more, from the data infrastructure, like we literally need to make choices about what data warehouse we're going, all the way to how do we put models in production and ML ops and do this right. And so data science team challenges, these are 3. Key takeaway for this slide, data science teams excel when they embrace their role as adaptive problem solvers and shift focus to meet the demands of dynamic projects. Striking the balance, research versus production in DS. So data science team balance, a lot of competing priorities here. Continuum 1, exploration versus delivery. I'm not going to go too much into that. I've already covered that. Continuum 2, short-term versus long-term. This is a big one, right? Short-term rapid insights or quick fixes. This is either data problems or we've got a we've got our busy season coming up and we need to make sure that we're ready for it or something like that. Or long-term investment. Do we understand that we need to do foundational work that scales because we understand that over the next 3 to 5 years we're going to be doing this kind of work over and over again, and we need to build reusable feature stores. And continuum number 3, creativity versus constraints. This is something that is very much, as a data science leader, you have to provide guidance to your team. Are we in a creative space right now where we have freedom to innovate, explore, and look at unconventional solutions? Or due to the business needs, due to the competitive landscape, due to whatever it is that is happening, and by competitive landscape, it could be other teams inside of your very organization. It could be across the company, across your industry. Do we have real business deadlines? Do we have real competitive pressures? We have computational limits. Do we have production readiness? And we need to actually focus on the technologies we have, the methodologies we have, and we need to get them to execute now. So key takeaway, balancing research and production is how a team stays innovative while consistently driving value. But that balance is over a larger time window than you likely expect. Going back to the human component here. You're not going to, if you're flipping back and forth between research and production over bi-weekly sprints, you're going to burn out your folks. You as a data science manager have a responsibility to really think about how you build this portfolio of research versus production. Great. Section 2, key challenges in managing data science teams. So, ambiguity to clarity. Right, defining data science problems. So you got to navigate a vast continuum of ambiguity. So continuum number 1, open-ended versus well-defined. We alluded to this earlier. Open-ended, vague business goals. Somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, how do we grow revenue? Well, that's about as vague as possible. Maybe the answer is, we entirely new business lines. Maybe the answer, there's just so many things it could be. Well-defined, specific objectives. Hey, we have a financial target that we need to hit, and the way that we are going to hit this financial target is by making sure that in Q1, our most premium customers have a lower churn rate than they've had historically. How do we explicitly address the churn rate of premium customers in Q1? You as a data science manager are going to have to prioritize the projects that come to understand whether you're in an open-ended space or a well-defined space. Continuum 2, business-led versus data-led problem definition. Business-led problems, very straightforward. The business comes to you with a thing that they need. We need a better pricing model. We need a better risk model. We have a regulatory readiness that we need to actually understand what our exposure is, whatever the case might be. Data-led problem definition is the exact opposite. Somebody in your team, has actually found some interesting pattern in the data. You've uncovered something and now you find new opportunities. I would argue that actually data-led problems are, those are the ones that if you ask me to think about some of the happiest times I've had as a data scientist, it's those. It's where we found an interesting insight that nobody expected and it became transformative, right? I've had the incredible fortune in my life of having queries that made me go, oh, I must have screwed up that SQL because that makes no sense, turn into $700 million ARR businesses. And so these are rare, these don't exist, and as a data science manager, you need to understand how much of this are you going to allow to happen, or how much of this do you want to encourage? And continuum number 3, reactive versus proactive problem solving. Again, this is something I've alluded to in the past. Are you responding to immediate stakeholder requests, understanding that doing that all the time is going to burn out your folks, but you have to do some of it to probably not get fired and continue to show value and create some amount of trust with the organization? Or proactive, right? Are you framing strategic opportunities using data science experiments? So, key takeaway from this slide, translating ambiguous goals into solvable problems requires strong collaboration, domain understanding, and iterative refinement, and for a data science manager to understand where, for this quarter, for this half, for this year, is the team on these continuums. Skill diversity. You're building a data science team. You can't just hire a bunch of people who did their graduate work at the place that you did and love the exact techniques that you love. So how do you think about different skill configurations? What are the continuums? Continuum 1, generalists versus specialists, right? Early stage companies will often hire a lot of generalists, right? They want full stack data scientists that they can plug in, and it doesn't matter if it's about standing up a new data warehouse or if it's about understanding why this darn deep learning model won't converge. They want people who can own end-to-end workflows. What happens as a company expands, however, is you end up usually hiring specialists. You end up saying, this is great, and I'm glad we've got this team, but would we really need somebody who is an expert in forecasting or in NLP or in fraud detection or something like that. Depending on whatever the headcount process is in your organization, you are going to have to decide how you allocate the resources that the company is investing into either hiring more specialists, hiring more generalists, or, and I don't think I say it in this talk, reskilling and retraining the people you already have over a period of time to get them to move from one area to the other, whether they were already specialists, deep specialists, and you want to get them to really know more of the stack, or whether they were generalists and you see that they have a skill or a passion for a particular area of data science and you want them to become a specialist in it. Continuum number 2, technical versus non-technical skills. Everybody knows what I mean by technical skills, I assume. There's things that happen on a computer, right? They're math, they're stats, they're programming, they're Git, they're GitHub, they're data engineering, data infrastructure, and all of those things. The biggest mistakes that I see made, and when I talk to folks across industry, when it comes to staffing up a team, is they'll staff up a team of people who are very, very deeply technical, and then they'll go, I just don't know what it is, but I can't get anyone in my company to give a crap about what we're saying. And then I ask, well, how do your people are they good at presenting? Are they good at writing? Are they good at providing a compelling narrative or telling a good data story? And the answer is well, no. Actually, I didn't hire that. As a data science leader, oftentimes you need to ask this very hard question of, do I actually hire somebody who I have assessed as being technically potentially a little bit weaker than an alternate candidate, because I see that they're going to be able to fill out the portfolio of skills with these non-technical skills that are going to allow me to influence, that are going to allow me to change someone's mind, that are going to understand how to map a department, map an organization, such that they know who the key stakeholders are. And then when you're building a cohesive team, continuum 3, individual contributions versus collaboration. As a data science manager, it is very possible and very easy to build a team of people who are basically acting as mercenaries. It's actually kind of the default thing if you're not careful. You will end up hiring a team of N people, you put them all in their own little silo, they all have become very, very worried about whether somebody else is in their swim lane, and you end up with no collaboration. That might be the right thing. If you're in a matrixed organization where the right thing is to embed people inside of a team and you don't really need the collaboration because of the particular stage you're in, as a data science manager, you can make that choice to say, we are a team, but we're really focusing on individual excellence. But depending on your situation, it might be the exact opposite. You may want to go, I need a collaborative organization where it's just team-oriented workflows. We're going to focus on cross-training. I'm going to focus on hiring people who are able to work. I got you. All right, so key takeaway, balancing diverse skill set fosters innovation and impact, but requires intentional team structure and clear communication channels. If you, as a data science leader, are not thinking thoughtfully about the full set of skills that you need in the portfolio on your team, you're going to end up probably with a team that is probably much too technical and bad at collaborating and bad at influence. Insight to action, bridging data science and business goals. How do you align? I'm going to be quick on this slide. Continuum 1, exploratory versus targeted efforts. Are you really, really focused on looking around and finding new opportunities, or are you actually trying to move a KPI? Continuum 2, business objectives versus research interests, right? Are you working on something that the business explicitly needs right now, or do you have the freedom, or are you going to choose to take the freedom to try to be ahead of where the business is going to be and figure that out? And continuum 3, stakeholder expectation versus feasibility. The expectations of every stakeholder the data science teams work with is that just query the data and get it back to me. I've got a meeting in 15 minutes. Can you just get that to me right now? But you need to work very hard as a data science manager to manage those expectations, and you need to understand how you're going to talk about that in the continuum with the feasibility. You need to balance those with the realistic timelines and the data limitations. What can the data we have actually show us? So, key takeaway, strong alignment requires clear communication of priorities, trade-offs, and the value data science delivers to business goals. And balancing iteration and timely delivery. So, timelines are influenced by competing demands across multiple continuums. Continuum 1, iterative development versus fixed deadlines. Is this a program or a project? If it's a project, it's one thing. Treat it as such. Use project management techniques. If it's a program, don't use project management techniques. Use program management techniques. They're a different thing. They've got a different journal and everything. Continuum number 2, research versus production cycles. I covered this earlier, but are you iterating on model designs, features, frameworks, methodologies, trying to find new things, or production? Is the goal now actually to lower the mean time between failures, to lower latency, and to make things more reliable? Continuum number 3, are we agile and flexible, or are we doing long-term planning? Right? Do we do a bi-weekly prioritization sprint where we decide what is most important in the next 2 weeks? Or are we creating a long-term roadmap that allows us to take bigger, potentially riskier bets? Again, none of these are right. None of these are wrong. They're all about, in this moment, what do you need and what does the organization need? Key takeaway, balancing experimentation with timely delivery requires clear milestones, flexible workflows, and a focus on business value. Some quick best practices on managing data science teams. You got to build trust. So, continuum 1, data simplification versus transparency. I see data science teams oftentimes oversimplify things. Then they get in front of an executive audience. The executive audience knows a little bit more than you expect them to. They ask a question. The data actually misses that nuance. You now look dumb in front of executives. Now, there is a perfect amount to simplify. Hitting that is very, very difficult. Transparency. I see data science teams make the exact opposite mistake. They're in a meeting with an executive, and they go in and they go, well, first, we really want to discuss the exact SQL query that we used to generate this graph. And you see the executive's eyes roll into the back of their head. There's a continuum here that you as a data science manager, when you're evaluating your people's work, you're explaining to them where, for the audience, do you need to be on simplification versus transparency. Continuum number 2, frequent updates versus milestone-based reporting. Who here loves filling in 15-minute time cards? Nobody, right? But the reality is the business wants to know what we're doing. Understanding for your company at this moment whether they need to know on a regular basis what is happening, or whether you can pre-agree to a series of milestones that you will do comprehensive reporting at those points, is a critical thing that you can do as a data science manager. You can understand, for this project, for this resource, for this XFN, cross-functional partner, which one of these are we going to do? And lastly, reactive support versus strategic partnership. Sometimes the business really does need a support organization. Sometimes the business needs a strategic partner. Realizing, again, at this moment, do we need to address immediate stakeholder needs as they arise, or do we actually need to skate ahead of the puck, to use a sports metaphor, which I never do? Like, which one of those do you need to be doing? Trust is built through consistent communication, aligned expectations, and delivering measurable value. Balancing freedom and focus for innovation. Continuum 1, open exploration versus targeted goals. I'm just going to continuum 2, individual initiative versus team collaboration. And continuum 3, time for experimentation versus deadlines for delivery. The big summary here is something along the lines of, how much structure are you putting on your team? Some people might call it micromanagement when it gets to the very, very structured, but I've also seen managers fail by going in and going like, yeah, just, figure out what matters. You, as a data science leader, have a responsibility to give your teams enough freedom that they have the ability to grow and they have the ability to find things that are passionate, but they can fit into the business, have the right business needs, fulfill the right business needs, and get things done. Curiosity thrives when teams are empowered with freedom, but guided by purpose. Deliver today, build for tomorrow. Continuum 1, operational support versus strategic development, right? Are you meeting those business needs, or are you investing in foundational research? Incremental progress versus breakthrough innovation. Your business might really just need you to make the ad score 1% better. They might need you to make the fraud prediction 2% better. That's okay. That might really be the most important thing that exists for your business right now. But you may work in a place where actually we're going to shut the whole thing down if we can't make things 250% better. And so we need to have fundamental breakthroughs. And continuum 3, business deadlines versus research timelines. Are you delivering outputs aligned with the immediate business schedule, or are you allowing flexibility for exploratory or high-risk projects? So again, balancing short-term wins with long-term investments ensures sustained impact and credibility. And for your ICs, for the people on your team, how are you cultivating growth? Are you continuum 1, individual growth? Are you investing in people by sending them to a specific course and by giving them their own course budget? Or team development? Are you focusing on group knowledge sharing versus retrospectives, peer reviews, workshops? Again, are you doing retrospectives versus real-time feedback? Are you the kind of manager that says, in the last 2 weeks you accomplished this, in the last month you accomplished this, last year you accomplished this? Or are you saying, hey, in this meeting we just had, I saw you do this thing. Let's talk about how we could have done this thing better. Continuum 3, formal versus informal learning mechanisms? Are you doing structured programs like mentorships, conferences, and boot camps? Or are you doing on-the-job learning, collaboration, and impromptu problem-solving sessions? Okay, 1 minute left. Fabulous. Using AI to manage data science teams? I do. I suggest you do as well. AI tools like LLMs can really make a huge difference in your ability to take in a great deal of content and do smart things with it. Automatic summarization, drafting and reviewing documentation, stakeholder communication. Something that I do literally all the time is I write a persona prompt and I say, you are a VP of technology at this company that cares about these 5 things. Please read this Google Doc that I have prepared focusing on these 5 things. Tell me the 5 questions that you are most likely to ask me, yada, yada, yada. Good use of AI can accelerate communication flows and help simplify language. Leverage AI for team collaboration and growth. It's great for code reviews and for best practices. If you're doing anything with RAG, it's great for creating knowledge bases. And it's actually really fantastic for skill recommendations, right? Actually going like, hey, I've got this person who does these things. What should I suggest that they learn next? And AI-driven insights for smarter management, team productivity analysis. If you've got the good luck of having your team information in some sort of like electronic digital format, feeding it to an LLM and saying like, hey, analyze the sprint metrics. Look at the delays. What's going on here? Now, don't expect it to add, because it may not be able to add and multiply well. Project prioritization. Here is the 50 strategy documents for the organization. Look at the projects that we've suggested. How would you rank these in priority order? And sentiment analysis for team health, right? If you get them to fill out surveys and there's a lot of text in there, you can read it yourself, but you have a bias. Feeding it into an LLM and saying like, hey, highlight trends in these team retrospectives, indicating burnout or dissatisfaction. Is there something that I'm missing? And with that, magically on time, let's see. The role of a manager is complex. You're here to do a few things. You need to create more value than the sum of its parts. If the value of your team is just the value of all the ICs, they don't need you. Why are they paying you a salary? You are there to identify future leaders and invest in them. It is critical to do that, but it's also critical as a manager to identify people that are struggling and figuring out how either you can help them get past the struggling, or you can do the kind thing and help them find a role either inside of the company or outside of the company that is a better fit for them, and align all this with business needs. There's no one way to manage a data science team. We know how to be an excellent plumber. We know how to be an excellent locksmith. Really, we don't know how to be an excellent data science leader. The best that we know is we have examples of pretty good ones. I want to encourage all of you to think boldly about what kind of manager you want to be. I want you to encourage to think in frameworks of trade-offs of the forces that are at play. I want to encourage you to think about these trade-offs and the time that it takes to make these trade-offs, and think about them from an empathic human scale. These are real people who you impact when you make these changes. And if you find yourself managing a DS team, most importantly, remember what it says in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy: don't panic. Thank you.